Perhaps the final chapter in the Matthew Perry death saga today in court, in federal court, where Matthew Perry's former assistant was sentenced today. Hi, this is Charles for TMZ, and Kenneth Iwamasa is the man who had been Matthew Perry's assistant, but also was distributing ketamine, was administering ketamine to him a lot in the last few days of his life, according to prosecutors. And Kenneth Iwamasa struck a deal with federal prosecutors. And part of this was that he would get a softer sentence, and that seemed to come through today. He had been facing up to 15 years in prison for the distribution of the ketamine, but because he cooperated with investigators and prosecutors in this case, he got leniency. The judge gave him just shy of 3.5 years in federal prison, much more lenient than 15 years, obviously. But again, this was because he helped prosecutors in nailing all the other suspects who were involved in Matthew Perry's death. But Kenneth Iwamasa really ran afoul of people very close to Matthew Perry. His family members have said that they thought Kenneth was there to help Matthew as he was battling addiction, and instead what they've found out in the aftermath is that it seemed like he was fueling this. Prosecutors have said that in the last 4 days of Matthew Perry's life, Iwamasa shot him up 20 times with ketamine. So he was clearly administering a lot of ketamine, was helping him get the ketamine from different doctors around town. And prosecutors said that he also engaged in a cover-up. So this is the part that, for people close to Matthew Perry, his family members, his friends, that just felt like an ultimate betrayal, because when Matthew Perry died, prosecutors say that Iwamasa was deleting documents, was getting rid of evidence, was getting rid of vials of ketamine and syringes, sort of trying to do a cleanup before police and investigators could get to the house and start going through all of those things. So that part certainly felt like a betrayal. And then there was a letter that was sent to the judge ahead of today's sentencing. And again, clearly people close to Matthew wanted the judge to know certain things about Iwamasa in hopes that he would get a heavier sentence. But one of Matthew Perry's friends and former publicist, a woman named Lisa Callio, she wrote a letter to the judge saying that shortly after Matthew's death, early one morning, she was on the phone with Kenneth Iwamasa, and he was driving one of Matthew Perry's cars through the hills, driving, I believe she said, from like Hollywood Hills out to Pacific Palisades. And the way she described it is that it was very clear he was enjoying the lifestyle that he'd gotten used to while working for Matthew Perry, while doing errands for Matthew Perry and driving his vehicles, and that even after Matthew had died, it seemed clear to her that he did not want to let go of that lifestyle. And it certainly, when you read the letter, it seems like here's someone who had no remorse, and I think that's what she was trying to convey to the judge in hopes that he would get a much stiffer sentence. But ultimately, it seems that the fact that Kenneth Iwamasa helped prosecutors and did help investigators trying to nail all of the other suspects, that the judge showed some leniency, and he went along with what federal prosecutors had recommended, which was 3.5 years in prison. And this brings to a close the Matthew Perry saga. We've seen Dr. Placentia has now been sentenced, also Eric Fleming sentenced, and of course the ketamine queen, Yasmin Sanga, she got 15 years in prison. So all of the suspects that were found to be involved in Matthew Perry's, in his death and fueling his ketamine use over the years, they have now been sentenced. Kenneth Iwamasa was the final one, and while he got a lighter sentence, still 3.5 years, nothing to sneeze at. Certainly, I think Matthew Perry's friends And relatives wanted to see something a little bit more than that, but this now brings to a close the saga of Matthew Perry's death.